Picture two people sitting in the same church pew on Sunday morning. One of them sang the loudest, prayed the longest, and looked like they had this whole faith thing figured out. The other one looked the exact same way. Here's the part nobody could see from the outside. Both of them went home that week and did the same thing they swore to God, with tears in their eyes, that they would never do again. Same broken promise, same private shame. You can't tell who's actually winning the fight just by looking at a pew. If that's you tonight, you already know the drill. You meant it when you prayed. You felt strong walking out of that prayer. Then a few days passed, sometimes only a few hours, and the same old trigger showed up, and you caved the exact same way you always do. What's worse, this time you barely reacted. No tears, no shaking hands. You just slipped right back into it like muscle memory, and that scared you more than the actual sin did. Because a cold little voice started talking in your head, and it wasn't the do better, next time voice you're used to. It was sharper than that. It said, a real Christian wouldn't still be doing this. If God actually lived inside you, this habit would have died a long time ago. So here's the real question keeping you up tonight, and it's worth saying out loud instead of just feeling it. Does the fact that you keep struggling mean you're still fighting for something real, or does it mean you were never really saved to begin with? Let's actually look at that question instead of running from it. Think about who tends to ask it. It's rarely the persons who stopped caring altogether. It's the worship leader who can hit every note on stage and can't stand to look at his own reflection by Monday morning. It's the deacon confessing the exact same struggle to his accountability partner for the third year straight. It's the mom quoting Bible verses over breakfast and white-knuckling her way through the same old temptation by lunch. From the outside, all of these people look like they've got it figured out. On the inside, every single one of them is wrestling with the question you're wrestling with right now. Here's something worth sitting with for a second. If you were truly finished, truly gone, you wouldn't even bother asking whether you're finished. Indifference doesn't ask questions like this one. Only something that's still alive cares enough to ask. There's an old saying fishermen have repeated for generations. Something like this: a dead fish will always float downstream because the current does all the work. It takes a living fish with a beating heart and working muscles to fight its way upstream. Nobody has to teach a dead thing to quit. Quitting is its natural state. But a living thing pushes against the current, even when it's exhausted, even when it gets shoved backward for a stretch, because something inside it refuses to just give in and drift. That tiredness you're carrying right now, that's not a warning sign that you're failing. That's evidence you're alive. Galatians 5 describes this exact tension, the flesh and the spirit pulling against each other so hard that you end up doing things you genuinely don't want to do. People who are spiritually finished don't fight their sin anymore. They simply stop calling it sin. You haven't done that. You're still uncomfortable. You're still ashamed. That discomfort is not a symptom of defeat. It's a symptom of life. You're also in good company, and not the company you'd expect. The Apostle Paul, the man responsible for writing roughly half of the New Testament, confessed something startling in Romans 7:19. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Notice the tense. He didn't say I used to do this. He said I do. Present tense, written by a seasoned apostle, not a brand new convert fresh off the road to Damascus. His ongoing struggle never disqualified him from his calling. It simply proved that the old patterns were still alive in him, even after something new and far stronger had already taken charge. The battle was genuine. The final result was never actually up for debate. So if a man like Paul could keep stumbling in some areas while writing scripture in others, Maybe never struggling again was never the actual goal in the first place. Maybe something else is. Here's where a lot of well-meaning people get stuck, and honestly, it's rarely explained clearly. You've been trying to manage the sin instead of replace it. Keep your eyes off it. Don't look. Don't click. Don't think about it. Except the human brain doesn't work like that, and deep down you already know it doesn't. Tell a toddler not to touch the stove and watch where their hand goes first. Tell yourself to stop thinking about something, and you've already thought about it twice over. Whatever gets your full attention grows, whether you want it to or not. Somewhere along the way, your walk with God turned into a checklist of things you're not allowed to do, and a checklist like that will burn you out far quicker than any single sin ever could, because willpower simply was not built to hold that kind of weight on its own. Ask an old farmer how he deals with a field full of weeds. He doesn't stand at the fence yelling at the weeds to stop growing. That field stays choked no matter how long he hollers. Instead, he plants something else there, something with roots strong enough to take over the ground and crowd the weeds out completely. That's how grace actually operates. It doesn't simply remove what's bad. It fills that same space with something better, until the bad thing has nowhere left to take root. You're probably too busy carrying guilt right now to even let yourself feel loved. And honestly, that's the real trap keeping you stuck. Here's a lie that sneaks in quietly, dressed up as conviction. You start believing that if you feel terrible enough for long enough, God will eventually decide to trust you again. So you start handing out your own punishments. You skip church because some part of you decided you haven't earned the right to be there this week. You go quiet during prayer because silence feels like the penalty you owe. None of that is humility, even though it borrows humility's clothes to sneak past you. It's pride in disguise, because what you're really saying underneath all of it is that the cross wasn't quite enough this time, and your own suffering needs to top it off. That bill is already stamped, paid in full. Stop writing checks against a debt that doesn't exist anymore. There's an old line that holds up. Sin tends to grow best in the dark, and shame is what keeps the light switched off. Shame was never the thing that made anybody holy. All it does is keep you hidden, and hidden is exactly where you're easiest to take down. Matthew 12:20 describes exactly the kind of person Jesus came looking for. A bruised reed shall he not break, and smoking flax shall he not quench. A bruised reed is cracked and bent, no good anymore for building anything or making music. Smoking flax is a wick that's nearly burned out, putting off more smoke than actual flame. That's a fair description of you on your roughest nights, bent, barely lit. Religion's first instinct is usually to toss something like that aside as a lost cause. Jesus has never operated that way. He doesn't throw out a flame just because the wind nearly got it. He shelters it with his own hands until it catches again. So the next time the urge shows up, or the next time you fail anyway, here's the move: don't disappear on God. Come straight to Him instead. That single decision changes the whole trajectory of the night. The enemy wants you waiting until you feel clean before you'll even pray, because he knows that's a finish line that keeps moving further away the harder you chase it. You were never asked to clean yourself up first. You were only ever asked to show up exactly as you are. Here's something worth holding on to tonight. Following Jesus was never sold as a life free of struggle. It was sold as a life that keeps moving forward, 1 inch at a time, even when the struggle doesn't quit. You're not the same person you were a year ago, even if tonight makes that hard to believe. You're stumbling, but stumbling forward still beats standing completely still, and it sure beats walking backward. Proverbs 24:16 says it plainly, "For a just man falleth 7 times, and riseth up again." not 0 falls. 7. Righteous people aren't the ones who never go down. They're the ones who keep climbing back up. An old Japanese proverb says almost the exact same thing using different words. Fall down 7 times. Stand up 8. Different culture, same exact truth. Because some things about being human don't change no matter where you were born. And here's the part that should genuinely bring you some peace tonight. When you go down, the Father isn't fixated on the fall itself. He's watching for the moment your hand reaches back up, looking for his. Winston Churchill is remembered for a line that fits perfectly here too. If you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop halfway through it and pitch a tent there. Keep moving. Now let's deal with the isolation, because that's exactly what the enemy is counting on. He needs you convinced that you're the only person on earth fighting this particular battle, smiling through Sunday and hiding the rest of the week. He's wrong, and you can prove it right now. If you're done letting shame talk you into hiding, if you're ready to keep fighting, instead of giving up the ground you've already won, drop a single line in the comments. I'm still swimming upstream. Nothing dead swims against a current. Saying it out loud is you telling the enemy directly that he hasn't won this round. Type it, then keep moving forward. You were never meant to fight this one by yourself. If you want to keep going deeper into what Scripture actually says about this fight, instead of staying on the surface of it, hit subscribe and stay close. We're building a community of people who refuse to coast through their own lives on autopilot. Come find your place in it.